Home field advantage? Not for 2020. Senior Kamala Harris, in New Jersey, only think he would make a good president. In Massachusetts, they're not the only 2020 contenders whose constituents have misgivings about their presidential ambitions. U61%. The numbers are even worse for New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who's considering his own bid. More than 3/4 of New Yorkers think he shouldn't run for president. The rejection was apt. Indeed, for much of the Democratic field, there's little home advantage to be found. Some contenders in 2020, said former New Mexico government Bill Richardson, the vulnerability of candidates in their home states has come more sharply into view in recent weeks, as the Democratic primary has intensified. Consider Texas. While O'Rourke polls well in Texas, two non-Texans, former Vice President Joe Biden and Sanders, are running about even with him in hypothetical matchups against President Donald Trump, according to a recent Quinnipiac University poll. In California, Harris has the endorsement of the sitting governor, Gavin Newsom, and a history of raising money in the state. But Biden is also the favorite son dynamic is antiquated, said South Carolina State Senior Dick Harpootlian. Home state polls are not necessarily predictive of success. In late 2000, in previous decades, politicians could often count on robust support at home, their local strength all but guaranteed victory. In 1990, in 2004 even after withdrawing from the race Senior John Edwards won. In 2020, the most likely home state advantage will belong to Sanders, the Vermont independent who routinely tops Morning Consult's rankings of America's most popular senators. Globuhar Post. But Vermont and Minnesota are relatively small prizes and far less consequential nominating states than the behemoths on Super Tuesday, including Texas and California. It's hard to do the favorite son thing these days, and I think that's especially hard for politicians who represent big mega states, said Mark Longabaugh, who was a senior advisor to Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. Bernie could do it, Longabaugh said. The truth is, Beto or Kamala Harris could walk through the airport in their home states, and some people will recognize them, but a whole lot of people won't know who they are. For any candidate, he said, to be able to win your home state, you've got to prove you're viable and you can win early. I think Democratic primary voters, they're not interested in some kind of loyalty vote for their local representative. What they're interested in part, the lack of home state solidification, reflects the breadth of the 2020 candidate pool. With so many I think people will be raising money from their home states, because I think they had that opportunity in the past to fundraise significantly for their statewide offices, said Lee Miron Goff, director of the Marist College Institute for Public Opinion. But as far as on one hand, Miron Goff said, many Democrats now running for president already have political profiles that transcend their state lines. On the other, in your home state, you do have name recognition, but that doesn't necessarily convert into support as a presidential candidate, he said. I think to some degree. In Texas, the state Democratic Party's executive director, Manny Garcia, said there may be a home state advantage for O'Rourke and Castro, the former mayor of San Antonio. But at the same time, Garcia said, people are going to be shopping because they're excited about everyone in the Democratic presidential field. Or as the Democratic political strategist Gary South put it in California, where he has studied the electorate's view of home state presidential contenders for decades, it's sort of like the verse of scripture. A prophet is without honor in his own country, South said. Sometimes, Zach Montelero contributed to this report.
Raindrops, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.